Junior. And so, have you been to any conference yet? Do you have thoughts, questions? Do I seem like I'm like about to fall?
No, just checking.
I had a tough moment this morning.
Do you want any cream or sugar? Okay. Okay.
Okay, well, don't like it too much. It's not going to happen next year yet.
Thank Joy for me.
Yes, Bishop.
So, any new legislation, new introduce so that's part of the problem. We have
Send a word from the conference. Is there a word from the conference? I'm expanding to fill the space. Right here. The mouth there.
nothing to do with this. If Laura Bolger is in the room, could she make her way to the front, please? Laura Bolger.
Is Elizabeth Ingram Schindler in the room? Would you come up? If you would find your seats, we're preparing to begin again. So I'm just going to make sure that the people we need to present are in place. I see Laura Bolger is here. Is Brant Hinshaw up? If you can find your way towards the front. And Peter Perry. Julie Reinholtz and Shane Moore. No kidding. You all have been fabulous. The spirit in which the work has been done, the cooperativeness with the transitions in and out of the room have really been terrific. And while I don't think any of us would be looking forward to another shared session next year, I think we would be less fearful. And we would have had a significant learning curve if we ever decide to do this again. So, we're going to turn to Laura Bolger for a report from the Board of Ordained Ministry. Laura, thank you for your leadership in this way.
Hello, greetings, beloved children of God. It's wonderful to see you all here. And I have a very short report to offer you from the clergy session of the Pacific Northwest. We had 2 actions that we took at our clergy session that we want to make sure that the body here is aware of. The first one is dealing with a change in the Book of Discipline, the 2016 Book of Discipline, that has to do with transfers of clergy from other annual conferences within the United Methodist Church. We recommended a transfer policy change that has to do with paragraph 347.1. And we approved it, and that is going to be an official policy for those who are transferring in from other annual conferences. And that whole policy, as it has always been, and the changes will be posted on the website. And so if you are a clergy from another annual conference interested in transferring in, please make sure you go to the website and you can see what the process there is. And so I'm not going to go into great detail about that, but we are happy that we have a way to do that now. The other policy that we adopted are guidelines for appropriate conduct by current and former pastors. This came to us jointly by the cabinets and the Board of Ordained Ministry and was passed at our clergy session for the greater Northwest area. Currently, it's just with the Pacific Northwest. But this is in regards to the transition time when we move clergy from when you have a change in appointments, and for clergy who are coming into a new church and for clergy who are moving on from that church. This appropriate conduct in this covenant that we want to make between clergy and with the church, as we have included the SPR chair to be a part of the conversation, is really to help to make the covenant between us healthy and appropriate and well for all who are involved in that transition. We know that it can be hard, and so we want to make sure that we have something that helps guide those relationships. Is there anything else you would like to say to that, Bishop? No. So this will also be posted on the website for all to read, and I want to thank all of the clergy for working so diligently on this and helping us create these policies.
You know, maybe I would just say the policies about former pastors and the relationship to churches, we had such an interesting and deep conversation, really. I mean, it's just scratched the surface, and yet it goes deep quickly. And it is endemic to our system that people come and go and build relationships. And so the transition between former pastors, previous pastors, congregations, that's a very complicated set of relationships. And everyone in the room could identify with the challenges of those relationships. And superintendents end up often being people who are called in to help mediate that and negotiate the terms of those complicated relationships. So it should be no surprise to us that that's difficult, but there should be no shame either in setting standards and being in open and truthful and important conversations to make sure that those relationships are healthy for everybody involved, and most of all, healthy for the church that always, almost always, is saying goodbye to a beloved pastor and, you know, taking some time to get used to the new pastor. So that'll be the document will be a good conversation starter for, I think, superintendents, pastors, and staff parish committees.
And if you have any questions about any of these, please feel free to come and talk to me at any time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. All right, we're going to turn to Brent Henshaw is bringing the General Conference delegation election presentation.
Good afternoon again. The quadrennium that we're in is a different quadrennium. This event, for one, has made it different for all of us in the PNW, but also the special called session that is coming has put the delegation into a deep reflective mode to come up with a plan for how we're going to address the special called session, General Conference 2020, and how we do our elections and that sort of work. So we're going to put a slide up for some of the work that leadership has put together for how we will proceed that will show the 4 years of the quadrennium and how we're going to move through them. Do we have that, Ian? He's working on it. The document is not out and available to you quite yet. We've been working on it right up through this morning, and so it will come out and be available for download or available from us as soon as we can get it up there. So over the next 4 years, there's a white line that kind of cuts across. The upper half is the delegation work and the delegate work, and the below is on the Episcopal nominations. So now we'll look at these 1 year at a time, and so we'll go to 2017, where we are now. The main focus here is on sharing and awareness. As I'm doing right now, we're currently outlining the plan. That's the top text block there. And in the center block, it's looking at the work with the jurisdictional delegates. And we hope that they'll have some time to share, but I don't know if that's going to work today, but we'll figure that out. What happened in 2016 and the experience moving out of that, but if not here at annual conference, we will get that shared through other media methods.
Brent, can I just make sure we're scrambling up here? Are you saying the delegation would like a chance to speak to us today? I'm not saying that's impossible.
No.
I don't think I've heard that.
It's not the delegation specifically. It's talking about the way forward, and some of that is the communications that you're making as well, and the videos that we had prepared. I know we've been shuffling things, so no, not specific.
Okay, if there are any requests for further agenda time, it'd be great to have a note.
I don't want to do that. In the lower part of the 2017 year, want to make clear, and I'm going to say this very specifically, there will be 2 Episcopal openings in 2020.
Or 3.
There will be 2 Episcopal openings in 2020. Before I leave the podium, we'll take a moment to reflect on that box about invitation for consideration of the clergy in the room that may want to be thinking about nominating themselves and putting themselves forward for that position. In 2018, we proposed that the delegation, the delegates, General Conference delegates, and the alternates be elected. We have a strategic reason for doing that and wanting to be forward-looking, and I'll get to that shortly. The conference and delegation will, in the year between now and next annual conference, engage in an educational process to explain the roles and expectations of members of the delegation, the full delegation. One of the things we discovered here in Portland in 2016 is that too much fell on the shoulders of our elected delegates and the alternates, and we had the rest of the jurisdictional delegates that had some work to do, but we want to have some specific roles and making specific expectations of them. So next year, we will elect the 2020 General Conference delegates and alternates only. So that would be 2 lay, most likely 2 lay and 2 clergy once our delegate number is available from the general church. At the same time, around the Episcopal considerations, the Committee on Episcopacy will bring a more in-depth explanation of the process of nomination and endorsements to annual conference, and a formal invitation for prayer and discernment will be made to clergy. They are currently working on a job description that will be more specific and give detail to those that might consider putting themselves forward. In 2019, and here's the strategic part, the special called session will take place, and one of the reasons we want to elect in 2018 is so that we can send to St. Louis in 2019 our first electeds from both 2016 and 2020, so that we have the continuity moving from the 2016 General Conference and on into the 2020 conference. So the first elected and alternates would probably be our team that we would send to St. Louis for that. The 2020 delegates, I got to use bigger font next time. or get different
We really
eyes.
like the bird. It works, you know?
We're working it. It just flew away. It just flew away. 2019 will also be when the full delegation will start meeting. And by electing our first delegates in 2018, they will have some time to prepare. One of the things that Mary and Marie reflected on is that with the election of the full delegation all at once, they had to build and form a team, and they didn't know they were going to be responsible for that. So that using this timeline, whoever the delegates are, would be able to do some planning and preparing so that they could do the team building that's necessary. And meetings would continue then in 2019 in preparation, both in coming into and going out of the special session for General Conference 2020. On the Episcopal front, candidates can start putting themselves forward to be elected up through annual conference in 2020. Those, though, that declare early their candidacy would have a chance to meet with the Committee on Episcopacy and the delegation and possibly earn their endorsement coming into the election in 2020. So those declaring early may have an advantage of time and meeting time. And then 2020. General Conference will be in Minneapolis. The conference and jurisdictional delegates will be sent. In 2020, we will elect our Episcopal nominees, 2 of them, to go to jurisdictional conference to be considered for episcopacy. So in 2019, I kind of skipped over that unintentionally. In 2019, we would elect the jurisdictional delegates. One of the other reasons we want to split that is the concern about, particularly around young people, and that 2018, looking out to 2020, that might be difficult for someone to commit to. And so by having the opportunity in 2019 to be a jurisdictional delegate, it would be a little less of a commitment in terms of planning and time. I put that before you as our plan moving forward. I'd be happy to entertain questions if they're quick today, but also as we move into the coming year, please, you can contact any of the delegation or myself, and we can talk about tweaks if they need to be done. Are there any specific things that are glaring that I should answer before I leave the podium?
We should all just be grateful that there's been this forward thinking on the part of the delegation to really guide this work in a thoughtful and measured way. So do you have any questions?
I didn't think I explained it that clearly, but I must have.
Good job, Mike.
Woo! As I said, the document will be available for download. We'll try to get that up later today, and that might prompt more questions. Once you have it in your hands, you can read it in detail. But thank you, Bishop.
Thank you very much. And I should just let you know that I invited Lonnie Brooks up to, he's consuming our rules as other presentations are being made, and he's going to help me find my way through this session.
I don't know why Brant sat down, because we're going to the research.
So Brant and Peter Perry, we'd like you to come back and talk to us about the administrative support plan.
I'd love to take another minute. I wanted to check, is Bruce Galvin in the room? Is that a yes? There he is, good. In my treasurer's presentation, was that yesterday? Whenever that was, in the last 36 hours. Bruce wasn't in the room because he was working on the blood draw, and I wanted to point out 2 things. And so I've invited Shalom to come up and share one of them, and then I'll share the other. Yeah. Shalom?
So Bruce has been an advocate for wholeness and wellness, and he is on track to hit 50 million steps this year. And when I mentioned honoring him at annual conference, he said, no, just give me an ice cream gift card. So we're splitting the difference. You've got your ice cream gift card, which says onward toward 50 million steps. And we're welcoming you as well. We're honoring you as well. Yay!
The second part of the celebration with Bruce is that he's been with the annual conference now for a little over 41 years. And we need to recognize that longevity and depth of understanding of our clergy and our churches is invaluable, and we thank him. I'll now turn you over to Peter Perry.
Bishop and members of the annual conference, it is once again my privilege to draw your attention to the budget. It begins in section D2 and continues. It's been presented to you. As I mentioned before, whether we're talking about our own personal budgets at home, our household budgets, or our budgets for our local churches, or this budget for our annual conference, the document is actually a statement of what we believe is important. It is an opportunity to see how we share our resources with the things that are most crucial to our understanding of who we are, and how we fund our mission and our ministry is seen in the way we allocate the resources. The difficulty, of course, is always how those different desires come together to find some sort of completeness, some sort of whole. The budget has been worked on by the connectional table and the Council on Finance and Administration, and it is once again before you for approval today.
Thank you. The budget is before you. Is there discussion? Everybody's found it? Are you ready to act? If you would adopt the budget, please lift your hand. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? It's adopted.
Thank you, Bishop. That's
Thank you,
pretty
Peter.
amazing.
Thank you. I see a card. Microphone 5.
Jana Kearns, Seattle Green Lake. I move to suspend the rules for the purpose of considering new legislation regarding the 30 million gallons of raw sewage entering the Puget Sound.
Jenna, I appreciate this. Can I ask, could I just ask you to hold that for one more item? We have one more action item before us that's already on the agenda, and I'll recognize you after.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So we're going to turn to Julie Reinholtz and Shane Moore for the nomination, or Julie for the nominations report. Yeah.
So
Julie, you've been very busy this week.
I have.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been fun.
Good. Glad to hear it.
You believe that, right? It has been fun. It has been fun, and part of it, the fun of it, is some of it's coming to an end. Makes it even more fun. I offer to you on the annual conference website the final report of this annual conference for nominations, understanding that we will not completely cut it off until probably the 1st of August. And I say that because this is the first time we've done it online. And I know that there are many of you that are not used to having it online, and so have not been able to work with the changes that we have put forward. And so Rich, where are you? There he is. Rich Lang is the nominations chair beginning the 1st of July. And if you have any changes, send them to him. And together we'll get them finalized by the time the journal comes out. So I give that to you, Bishop.
All right. So the nominations report is before you. Are there any questions? If you would adopt the nominations report, please say yes. All opposed say no. Any abstentions? It is adopted with appreciation, Julie, for all your work. Thank you very much. We turn to Shane Moore for the rules.
Yesterday morning, I stood before you with our initial report of the Rules Committee. There have been no changes that have been brought to our attention, so I'm bringing the initial report as the final report. So
Go ahead.
Part 1, report concerning petitions and recommendations in the pre-conference handbook. We approved earlier today on the consent calendar, Section C10, Petition 14, changing Rule 7, Section 3D. So since we approved that on this morning, that is a rule change.
Okay.
Part 2, we have 6 changes here, and we'll be voting on each of these, Bishop.
Okay.
So number 1, at the request of the Connectional Table and the Council on Finance and Administration, the Rules Committee moves that Rule 11, Section 2B, about moving expenses, be amended as presented.
All right. Does everybody know where this is? Can you help us know where this is?
So we had it up on the screen yesterday morning.
Was it in the pre-conference handbook?
It was not in the pre-conference handbook, but was on the website because it came out a week after the handbook.
Okay.
Here's Shirley the Good.
We're getting nicknames up here. We've got Shirley the Good down here. Thank you.
So the top of the report says initial report of the Rules Committee. I have seen a few floating around that people had.
So I'm going to suggest that you read this to us, Shane, since we don't have it projected. It's not real long. I think we can get it if you read it.
Some of them are not that long, Bishop.
This one isn't that long.
The annual conference, so currently it reads, and then I will pause to tell you what we're inserting. The annual conference shall pay the one-time moving expenses up to an amount set by the annual conference on recommendation of the Council on Finance and Administration of the following persons, and this is where change happens. It did say a retired minister. We're striking that and inserting a minister retiring under appointment from a local church. Then it did say a minister on disability leave. We're striking the word disability and adding medical. That change is Book of Discipline. The previous change is being done to reflect current practice of how we offer moving expenses for retired clergy.
All right, so this proposed change is before you. Is there discussion? If you would adopt this rule change, please say yes. Yes. Those opposed say no. Any abstentions? It is approved.
Number 2, at the request of the Connectional Table and the Council on Finance Administration, the committee moves change of Rule 11, Section 2C. And this continues, this is in the same rule of moving expenses. Candidates for ministry, where it used to say or ministerial members, we're striking that and inserting clergy being appointed from beyond the conference boundaries. It did say who are transferring in and being appointed shall. We're striking that and adding the word may be reimbursed for moving costs according to a schedule available from the Council on Finance and Administration and approved by the annual conference.
All right. This proposed rule change is before you. Is there discussion? If you would approve this, please say yes. Yes. All opposed say no. Any abstentions? It's approved.
Number 3, the Rules Committee moves that Rule 5, Section 3A2 be amended as presented. Under recommendation assignment, it previously said the conference is empowered to assign. We're adding the Office of Connectional Ministries in consultation with the writers of this legislation is empowered to assign recommendations to the appropriate focus session.
All right. This has to do with the way petitions to the annual conference are handled. So this is before you. Is there discussion? You're too happy. All who would approve say yes. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I'm going to break my own rule and invite you to microphone 3.
May we have a definition of the maker of the recommendation?
Thank you.
What was it?
He's asking, how do we understand the writer of the legislation?
So all legislation comes from an author. So whoever that author is, they will be in consultation of where the legislation will be assigned. Previously under rule, it just said the conference is empowered to do this, but did not define who the conference was.
Got that? All right. If you would approve this rule change, please say yes. If you're opposed, say no. Any abstentions? It's approved.
Number 4, the Rule Committee moves that Rule 5, Section 1A be amended as follows. I am not going to read this entire because it's a very long one. What it entails is who is on the Sessions Planning Committee. And outside of a few grammatical changes, we are adding the chairperson or representative of the annual conference worship team. It has been our practice for many years to have that person be on the sessions planning team, but never by rule. Then in the next paragraph, by rule, we have a sessions local arrangements committee that includes many people from the local district. And we are adding in a child care coordinator, as this annual conference has tried to be intentional over the last few years to care for the children of our pastors and lay members.
All right. You've heard this rule changes before you. Are there any questions? Any discussion? If you would approve this, please say yes. Yes. If opposed, say no. Any abstentions? It's approved. And isn't it great to hear kids' voices, happy and sad, in our sessions? It's a great thing. It's really a joy.
Number 5, the Rule Committee moves that Rule 5, Section 3B2 be amended as follows. It's about tenure on focus sessions. We have previously had a limit of how many focus sessions you could serve on a committee, but we have not actually practiced using limits. So we are striking the limits that you can serve on a focus session.
All right. This is before you. Is there discussion? All who would approve say yes. Yes. Those opposed say no. Abstentions? It's approved.
Number 6, at the request of the Cabinet, the committee moves that Rule 6, Section 1, C2 be amended as follows. This deals with the makeup of the Board of Congregational Development. At request of the Cabinet, it used to say 3 Cabinet members. The words up to 3 Cabinet members was inserted.
All right. Is there any discussion? If you would approve this rule change, please say yes. Yes. All opposed say no. Any abstentions? It's approved.
And then Part 3 is submitted for your information. Mainly there are 3 different ones here. These deal with grammatical changes and changes to make language truly be in line with the Book of Discipline. They are not any substantive changes that changes the nature or the outcome of the rule. We spend every year trying to eliminate these, and every year more and more get brought to our attention.
And these don't require a vote.
And these do not require a vote.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your work and attention to detail, Shane.
Thank you.
All right, we've had a couple of requests that were not on our original agenda, and the first of those was Jana, who was at the microphone a moment ago. So, Jana Kearns, I invite you back to the microphone to make your motion.
I move to suspend the rules for the purpose of considering new legislation regarding the 30 million gallons of raw sewage entering the Puget Sound.
All right, a suspension of the rules requires a 2/3 vote. It's not debatable, and so you can't really know more than just that one little glimpse into what Jana's intention is. If you would, it needs a second. Thank you. Is there a second? It's seconded. Thank you. If you would suspend the rules to hear her late petition and to act on it, please say yes. Yes. Those opposed say no. Any abstentions? All right, I'm going to ask to see hands. So if you would support suspension of the rules, please lift your hand. Those opposed, same sign. Abstentions? The rules are suspended to hear this motion. So Jana, would you present your motion?
I propose this legislation because people of faith, we have an obligation to put our faith in Jesus Christ into action.
Jana, I need you to make the motion first. Can you read the motion itself? Do you have it?
He just took it.
Okay, the secretary has it. We'll read it.
Okay, thanks.
Let me just note, Jana wrote her motion before she offered it, so we have it at the table. Is it different from what he's bringing?
No, it's the same one.
Okay, good. You have to hold that.
For the Pacific Northwest Annual Conference, to direct the secretary of the annual conference by sending a letter, etc., to petition the city of Seattle to act now and stop all raw sewage from entering the nearby lakes, rivers, etc., and Puget Sound, sewage that is killing our fish and other wildlife.
All right. Now you may speak.
Okay. I propose this legislation because as people of faith, we have an obligation to put our faith in Jesus Christ into action. We support and encourage the safe processing and disposal of raw sewage and pollution entering the Puget Sound. Just as we are performing the river witness tomorrow morning, we need clean waters for that which are teeming with life and for generations to come.
Thank you. And Jana, did you tell us what church you're from?
Green Lake United Methodist.
Thank you very much. So, this motion is before you. We've suspended the rules to consider it. Is there discussion? Yes? Microphone 1.
Grant Connect only, member from Des Moines United Methodist. I'd like to point out that the city of Seattle does not have jurisdiction over the sewage treatment plant, which has failed and is dumping the sewage into Puget Sound, so we may need to amend this motion.
Microphone 4, right behind you, Carl.
My name is Cross Slater. I'm Wallingford United Methodist Church, former president of the Wallingford Community Council. The city of Seattle is engaged in a major project in conjunction with the county to divert. We have in Seattle mixed storm sewer and sewage facilities. So anytime there's over about a half an inch of rain, we dump several million gallons of sewage into Lake Union, which of course gets to Puget Sound. So I think it's a very timely kind of thing to send to the city Seattle government. And you can send it to the county government too if you want, and to Metro. But the point is the city of Seattle does have a great deal with the outflow. And there's a multi-million-dollar project to put in a large trunk line from Wallingford through Fremont down to Ballard to catch that flow and hold it so it only overflow about once a year. But the city of Seattle needs all the encouragement you can give it. But it would be good if they wouldn't mind a friendly motion to send it to Metro and to King County because they have a lot of the flow too. So, but it is a city of Seattle is a big player in this. Okay. And I'm involved in, and if we must say so, fighting the city of Seattle on a whole bunch of issues. This is one.
Thank you. So I don't think we can do a friendly amendment, but if somebody wanted to make an amendment, we could consider that. You just spoke. You would have to be somebody who made a motion before they spoke. Sorry, Carl. All right, this is before us. Are you ready to act? If you would approve this motion, please say yes. Yes. All opposed say no. Any abstentions? It's approved. Thank you very much. And Jana was bold to do this, not knowing really how to process, and found friends to help her figure it out. And so, gold star for Jana. Then we had a request for a moment of personal privilege from Elizabeth Ingram Schindler.
Thank you, Bishop. If I might, I'd like to offer just a short reflection about the installation service on Wednesday night. I, for one, was completely unprepared for the emotions I felt during the installation service on Wednesday night. Before the covenant portion even began, tears began streaming down my cheeks. I cried all through the promises, the presentation of the signs of Bishop Elaine's ministry, and much of her Episcopal address. I cried because I felt the power and weight of what she is called to do, to be pastor and servant, to hold the body of Christ in unity, to be a means of reconciliation and healing. I felt overwhelmed at the thought that a person, even with God's help, could ever make such promises. It is almost inconceivable to me, and I can imagine it can only be done under the miraculous power of God and the indefatigable, undeterred leading of God's Spirit. But I also cried tears of joy for every feminine pronoun in the service, knowing that at one time they all said he or him and had to be intentionally changed. In a year in which my gender has seemed a greater liability than ever, to see the stole placed on a woman's body, to see her hand holding the shepherd's staff, refreshed my spirit, which was far more parched than I had realized. I cried tears of relief that while I had never seen a woman pastor before I went to seminary, my daughter knows a woman bishop. She will never wonder whether God could possibly call her into ministry, whether God could possibly have her do the work of mothering and pastoring at the same time, whether she could possibly be a successful leader in the church, even without a booming baritone voice. I cried tears of awe for the power God has to change a world that would appear in so many ways doomed to repeating the same mistakes until the spirit of the people is broken and they just give up. I cried tears of wonder, admiration, reverence, and even disbelief at the power of God, the humility of God, the imagination of God to use people like us, people like Elaine, people like me, to bring life to the world. Perhaps Wednesday night was not an historic moment for everyone, but it was monumental to me, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Let's stand up for Elizabeth. My goodness. We're standing up for Elizabeth as much as we are for anything else. You bring tears to my eyes, Elizabeth. We lose track of the path that we walked to get to where we are. And last night I had requested one of the songs that was sung in the service. It's the one whose words were, "I'll build an altar built of the stones I have found here. I'll lay them down here, rough as they are." That's who we are. We're all the rough stones that God has put into the world to bear witness to what we can be, to what God would have us be. It's a terrific privilege and a humbling privilege day by day to live into that reality. and not to pretend that we're anything but those rough stones. So it's a deep privilege to be in ministry with you, and I give you thanks. Thank you, Elizabeth, for your witness.
Children of God, it does not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when God appears, we shall be like God, we shall be like God, we shall see God face to face. Come, O fount of every blessing, to my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Beloved, beloved, we are the children of God, and it does not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when God appears, we shall be like God, we shall be like God, we shall see God face to face.
I can't ever let you just sing that to me. I got to sing it with you.
Kara Scriven has a special invitation for us.
Kara Scriven. Oh, you know what? As Kara comes, I'm just going to say our annual conference, Pacific Northwest Annual Conference, is going to be held June 21 through 24, 2018, but I don't know where. Kara.
I know where. Megan and I, our lay leader, out there somewhere, we would like to personally invite you to the beautiful Puyallup Valley. It is the entryway to Mount Rainier. And I can't promise you it won't rain, but I can promise you the strawberries will be ready and you will want to get some.
And there will be scones.
Yes.
There will be scones. That's like a poem or something, right? You're going to write that up for us next year. Yeah, good. Okay. So on your behalf, may I say, we're coming. Yay. All right. We'll see you in Puyallup. I'm glad I know how to pronounce that name, you know? You've had a bishop or two that didn't know how to pronounce Puyallup. I think we might have finished our work. So I'm going to turn to the secretary for an announcement or two.
So Mission U would like you to know that Mission U will be talking about the missionary conferences that were mentioned earlier in the CONAM report, and that you really do want to sign up for Mission U. That will be held July 14 through 17 in Central Washington at Central Washington University. Registration closes at the end of conference, and registration area is out there by near that coffee bar and all those wonderful booths. At the end of this, as soon as we adjourn, please take everything you have and depart this room rather quickly, because the staff has 1 hour to turn the room into a banquet room so that we can get back together again.
All right, I'd like to call on David Valera to dismiss us with a prayer.
I would like to dismiss us in my native tongue, Tagalog.
Let's stand to receive the blessing.
Kaya humayo kayo, lumabas sa lugar na to, at dalhin ang pag-ibig at ang kapayapaan ng Panginoon na siyang sasama sa inyo. Ang banal na Espiritu siyang hindi iiwan kayo sa lahat ng inyong gawain. Salamat, Panginoon, sa aming mga biyayang natanggap sa inyo. Amen.
See you at the banquet.